The conversation you're about to hear reminded me of a French film I once watched called Au de l'Himalaya. It's about this autistic boy and his parents, and throughout the whole film, everyone, his parents, the teachers, the therapists, they're all panicking about whether he'll pass to the next grade. There's so much fear, so much pressure, and then at the end, they're just told he'll repeat the year. That's it. And the parents break down like, wait, that was an option this whole time? It just hit me how much we as parents carry in our heads that no one says out loud. I really wanted to speak with Yasmine about my own experience with one of Talal's speech therapists. She was a very typical French orthophoniste, very structured, very strict. And I had chosen her because I wanted French exposure in his therapy. But after a few sessions, I started to feel uncomfortable. Her tone, her attitude with him, even with me. I stayed in the room quietly during sessions, but there was something off. I tried to gently guide her toward what works better for Talal, but it was hard. And one day I just ended it. I sent a message saying we'll take a break, and the thing is I liked her. She didn't do anything wrong. She was good at her job, just very different in her approach. It was confusing. Part of me thought Talal needed that tough style, but another part felt it wasn't right for us. And I kept asking myself, what are my rights here as a parent? Can I speak up? Should I have stayed? It was all very gray. Progress can feel impossible. From having an autistic brother, to raising a deaf son with cochlear implants, or working with families as a neurotherapist, I've seen how overwhelming it can be to feel like nothing is changing. But life has taught me that growth is always within reach. Every brain can learn and adapt no matter the diagnosis, and believing in someone can shape their future. You see, you have a choice: to live a life weighed down by limitations, or to embrace a life filled with possibility. And I'm here to help you make that choice by sharing stories of caregivers and experts that have changed my life, the tools I wish I had known, and the conversations that have questioned my beliefs. I'm Leloa, and this is All Brains Grow.
School coaching, and you have the parental coaching, whether we like it or not, because whenever you say youth, you're also talking about minors. So in their presence, you need the presence of the parents as well.
For over 2 decades, Yasmine has worked as a speech and language therapist, but her focus in recent years has shifted towards something deeper: parental and youth coaching. Through her experience, she saw that progress in therapy often depended on how involved and supported the parents were. Children spend most of their time at home or school, not in a clinic. So she began working closely with families, helping them understand their role, guiding them in setting realistic goals, and supporting them through everyday challenges. She also coaches teenagers, mainly between 15 and 17, who are often overwhelmed, even when they're bright and motivated. Some struggle with organization and confidence, others with pressure at home or school. In some cases, Yasmine recognizes that their difficulties go deeper. Do you also work maybe with someone who would have a learning disability?
Yeah. And because I have this experience as a speech and language therapist, sometimes I might refer them to a speech and language therapist because I know that this lack of organizing their timetable comes from the fact that he or she has a learning difficulty, even disorder. So I'm talking dysorthographia, dyslexia, dyscalculia, and they were never diagnosed. Or I might have cases where they are overdiagnosed, meaning I read the report, he has high potential, intellectual potential, he's ADHD, what? Suddenly, at 15, he got those reports, and then the parents are like, I mean, how can it be? How didn't I discover this before?
Yeah.
And this is where I do believe that sometimes we are over doing it with kids, with students, with our kids, with our children, with our high schoolers. I mean, now you go on Instagram and then you get to see that if someone is not reading well, okay, you have to go see this person and this therapist. Okay, he doesn't focus, then of course he has ADD or ADHD. I mean, it's
Okay, but I will give you my answer. For me, the people who are driving a lot of these uncertainties are the schools.
yes.
The schools either have high pressure or high expectations, or well-meaning nurseries or crèche or, maternelle. They start raising questions about certain behaviors or certain delays. Then go ask for assessments. And so my question to you is, how are parents meant to navigate all of these concerns that are being brought up, at least from what I see, mainly from schools? How do we know if this is a true concern in that way? Or is it, like you're saying, this new medical system that is putting so much pressure on the kids, and then they go for the assessments and then they have a big doubt on a certain potential diagnosis, and then you've entered a world of...
C'est un effet domino. It's the domino effect. You start and then you have to continue. You start doing one assessment and then you have to continue. I do believe that... Okay, I'm going to give you an example. I see you. You come, you take an appointment, and I tell you, listen, Lulua, why don't you go see a speech and language therapist? Versus, no, Lulua, I think you have to go see a speech and language therapist because I do believe that you might have ADHD. There's a huge difference between those two approaches. In the first approach, there's a communication between school and parents, where school is actually telling the parents that maybe, there is something wrong. We don't know what it is. And it might not be wrong. It might be okay. It might be within the milestones. Second approach, with my intonation, with the way I'm telling you what to do, I'm telling you there is something wrong. So you're actually going to the therapist, okay, and you're expecting that this therapist will tell you that you do have ADHD.
And so what you're saying, wow, how is that affecting my forms? Because I have forms to fill out. So if I'm at your clinic or, and I'm filling out these forms while my child is being tested.
You will doubt yourself.
Then, and I'm being told there's something wrong. Is it possible that I'm actually giving answers?
Of course. And you're going to doubt yourself. And then, now with the ADD and ADHD, you have many attention skills forms to fill, you as parent and teachers.
Yes.
Which I believe is unfair for the child. Because what if this teacher is actually filling this scale based on a bad week for the child, or he wasn't okay, he was sick, he didn't understand the lesson that was...
Or the high expectations of the school.
Exactly. Or the fact that, you can't gather all teachers to fill one simple attention scale form. It's very general. Okay, you can take it into consideration. You as parent and me as a therapist. But I cannot base my report on that only. So even if I go back to your initial question, schools are putting pressure, nurseries as well, but parents as well.
Yeah.
let's say things clearly.
Yes.
For the past maybe 10, 15 years, parents are now, I read on Google, I saw a video, I listened to a podcast. You know what? I'm going to go do this test.
Yes. Yes, you're sorry.
I had a mom, but this mom, she was torn apart. She did a test for her son at an ENT, and there everything was normal. She calls me, she tells me, Yasmine, I think the doctor is mistaken. I'm going to take him to another one.
Yeah, bless her.
So it was like 2 days ago. Or another mom who's like, how can school tell me that my daughter has ADD and ADHD? Because they wrote a letter to the attention of the therapist. And so the therapist automatically, he opened the closet and he took the ADD and ADHD tests.
Yes. Oh my God.
See?
Thank you. Yeah.
What I tell parents, when you go, don't show the therapist, including myself. When they call me to ask for a consultation, they tell me, okay, do we send you the reports? I tell them no. Okay, do you want me to tell you some? No, I don't want any summary. I will meet with you and we'll talk. So it's not only about schools putting pressure. I think it's everyone involved. The pressure is there because I do believe that the approach is wrong. And unfortunately, social media, like in Arabic, sayf zu haddin, so you have like the pros and cons. Sometimes it's for good purposes. Other times it's really for the bad ones. So,
can you give an example?
Yeah.
Please
How many times?
I hope you're not going to bring up my page. I'm kidding.
No.
You wouldn't be here, I think.
How many times have you heard that if a child put things one next to the other, he's autistic?
Yeah.
How many times have you heard that if you call a child and he doesn't answer you, he's autistic?
Yeah.
How many times have you heard that if a child confuses letters, he's dyslexic?
And you mean that these kinds of topics and conversations are being told online without contexts or...
Yeah. This is why I don't think parents are interested in knowing the technical terms of any syndrome that their child has. They're more interested in getting to understand what the child is suffering from and getting the chance to know how they can help. It's very easy. I can open Google and let's talk technical terms. You can do this as well. Whereas I never see this on your page. You're always talking, you're being practical. Parents need to hear practical things.
You're bringing up a good point. A lot of times, what looks like inattention in class is actually a child struggling to understand, especially if there's undiagnosed dyslexia or another learning difficulty. Yasmine tries to explain this to parents and teachers in simple, practical terms, without overwhelming them with labels or technical language. What she's learned is that the goal isn't to panic or go into fix-it mode. It's about helping families find that middle ground between denial and pressure, so she can support the child with understanding and realistic expectations. When it comes to diagnosis, Yasmine follows a careful process. She begins with an in-depth meeting with the family, sometimes lasting up to 2 hours, asking questions and observing the child closely. If testing is appropriate, she chooses tools carefully and analyzes results with cultural context in mind, especially when standardized tests are based on European populations. Rather than delivering rigid labels, she walks families through what she observed, what the results suggest, and what meaningful next steps could look like.
And then I tell them, okay, I do believe that your child has dyslexia. I'm going to explain to you why. The thing is, just when I say dyslexia, they fall apart.
Yeah.
But when I start explaining what it means and how we can work with this dyslexia, they had no idea actually, because they do believe that dyslexia is a big word, just like autism, just like SSD, speech sound disorder, just like stuttering.
Yeah.
But when you actually get to explain to them what hides behind this word, they are relieved somehow.
Yeah.
Ils n'étaient pas conscients de ça. Because for them, dyslexia, it's the end of the world. They cannot go to a regular school. They cannot attend a regular curriculum. It's not true. That's why we have the IEP or the PAP. In younger classes, we have the PPRE. And then you said something, unfortunately, you can also see it in real life. You know, for example, dyslexia, then you have to go to a speech and language therapist, a special educator, a counselor, a psychomotor therapist. It's not true. You set priorities. You can have a child who's dyslexic, but who actually does not need, for the time being, any psychomotor intervention. You say this to the parents. I had many parents. Once I told them their child stutters or has dyslexia, I've never heard of them ever again. But at least at night when I sleep, I'm fine, because I did what I had to do and I was honest with them. And at the same time, I'm not going to tell them they have dyslexia, the son has dyslexia over the phone.
Or sending an electronic report.
Thank you.
By email. And then
tell them, if you have any question, come back to me.
Yes, that's beautiful, a way of communicating.
So, no, just like you see them at the beginning, once you finish the report, okay, I send the report ahead of time, but I tell them, don't even look at the report, because we're going to do a session together and I'm going to go point by point with you. Because sometimes they won't agree. It's their right.
Yeah.
You have to listen to them just like they were listening to you, just like they have trusted you. You work with parents, you know what I'm talking about. And you're going to have a lot of people who are going to be in denial. You have to give them time. What I personally believe in, I give them time, and then maybe a week later, I send a message. And they will either call me back or they won't. But that's fine. I have a family who called me 3 days ago. The last time we talked, it was 2 years ago, for the same issue. But see, they came back.
It's hard. I get it. Like, it's I'm in throughout this whole conversation, we can't blame, because even schools, right? Even if we start with the pressure we get from schools, it's hard to blame them either. You know, they have a million things and they have their own priorities. Therapists have their own priorities and their ways of working, and so it is a very challenging, so many things to navigate. And the problem is that the result of all of this is in the child becoming maybe, and I don't know what you have to say about that, but I truly believe that you can make, because of all these pressures, you can make a diagnosis maybe even stronger than it was in the beginning, because of the effort that is being put in trying to erase it or in the fixing of it. You end up making the child's identity dyslexia, maybe. When it didn't have to go that way.
I always tell parents, if you are not at ease or your child is not at ease, then there's something has to change. I tell them, you talk to the teachers, you talk to the principal, you talk to a therapist, if there's a therapist at school. In French schools all over the world, you have the CPE. Or the counselor in American and British schools. You go and you talk about everything. You put all the cards on the table. and you ask to have the therapists present as well.
Who did the assessments.
Exactly.
And that's a right that you have as a parent.
Yes. Just like the right that you have just like the child has the right to have an IEP or an PAP implemented in class concerning all disciplines for him to make learning easier and more adequate to his or her situation. So this is a right. And you talk to them and then you see, because you have schools where they will tell you, we don't have the ability to help you. We don't have the ability to help your child. We cannot do additional copies that have bigger fonts or...
And is that also their right? Or do we get into the world of discrimination and...
No, because sometimes you have teachers who don't know how to do this. You have schools or systems who cannot implement this. And usually this is written on their website. Like a notice. For example.
And it's also their right to say that and do that?
Yes, because it's, after all, it's a regular curriculum. Mm-hmm. See? But sometimes, I mean, the word is evolving, so I'm not asking too much from a grade 4 teacher to do an additional sheet with less questions, with a bigger font. It's on the same computer. It's just like for this child, she has to do the changes.
Yeah.
So you go, you talk. I mean, there's something inside you as a mom, as a dad, where you can feel it's either gonna work or it's not. This never fails. I do believe in that. And here is your role as a therapist. What makes me crazy is having families come to me with reports done over the years. Okay, what did the therapist tell you? What did she or he recommend? Did you talk to her? Did you do a session together? No. Not once, Lulwa. I mean, this is part of the job as well. You work with the child and you work with the family. You answer their questions. You answer their concerns. Of course, there are limits because sometimes parents want to become the therapist at home. They want to know what we're doing. They want to know what tests we're using so that they can use them. For me, this is a big no. But for the choice of whether continuing or taking your child to another school, once you finish this meeting with them, there's something inside you that tells you. It's either you see that they are willing to help, or they will tell you that we cannot.
Yes.
There's no magic trick. You can't force them. But at the same time, I search for the ethics in some people, some teachers, some principals. I mean, okay, if you're thinking and you're scared of losing this child, meaning losing an additional tuition every year, I mean, be honest with the family. Come on.
Yeah.
And just tell them that, okay, we can try. Or
that's pretty rare though. No, I feel like it's mostly parents who are asking schools to force these.
But sometimes you might have cases where the principal can tell you, Lulwa, I'm sorry, I cannot ask my teachers to do this, to do those changes. Though it's, I mean,
but it's not
more
radical
common
changes. It's more common for schools to be honest about that.
Yes.
Then parents saying, no, you will make it work.
Hence, the importance of the therapist. Prior to any meeting with the school, I talk to the parents. Because I tell them, you have a list of questions to ask, and you have questions that you cannot ask, or you have requests you are not allowed to ask, because this
You
is...
mean the school or the parents?
No, when I talk to the parents, because there are requests that they want to, just like you said, they want to force the school to do this. You cannot, if this is within their system.
Yeah.
You know, I always check the websites of...
The schools?
yeah.
Wow.
Because sometimes it's
Yeah.
very clear.
Yeah. They haven't lied. They
Exactly.
haven't misled you.
Okay, they did not hold signs with the regulations. Yes, it's on the website.
You know, actually, one of the questions I wanted to get into, and I'll share a small story about that, is about the rights of parents. Because I think we genuinely don't know. Like, you just taught me something I didn't know. I know from all the speech therapists I've had personally with my son, they were kind enough to say, can I speak to the school? And then can we speak between each other? If they hadn't done that, I had no idea they could actually do that, or that I could request that. Those rights of parents where we think that the school knows better or the therapist knows better, and we don't, this triangle is so hard to navigate. What you just said is amazing to know, that I can actually bring this triangle at a table.
As long as you're clear. I mean, sometimes parents tell me, okay, you know what? I'm going to send an email, but I won't say that you're coming.
No. I mean, the three of us at a table.
You ask them for a meeting and you mention that the therapist is coming.
Yeah.
So it's...
And you as a therapist...
I always go. I ask to go or to attend.
But Anna, as a parent, if I ask the therapist who did the assessments to go...
She should go or he should go.
To do a meeting with the school...
Unless it's a personal choice, they don't go. I have always gone to all meetings. Because I don't believe that a principal is supposed to understand a specialist's report. Or a teacher. Or a psychomotor therapist reading a speech and language therapist report. Or at least to have a call.
Or, you know, the many things I've heard, not mostly here, more like in the Arab countries, of schools speaking to parents about the child, but it's not the teacher who's talking, it's the head of the program. And the teacher is never actually at these meetings.
I have the opposite. I have teachers who give the diagnose to parents.
No.
Yasmine, I think your child has ADD.
Yeah. Of course, yes. And then they say, so then go do the assessment.
But it's not up to...
Yes.
It's up to... I mean, or at least in the email, you have to have something that shows that actually the teacher and the head or the principal talked. They communicated. In Lebanon, I worked as the head of learning disorders. I used to communicate with the parents and the therapists. Because even if I'm a speech and language therapist, I used to meet with other speech and language therapists who have done an assessment to those students.
Yeah.
You need to understand their approach, their point of view. I mean, it's enriching, really.
Yeah.
Because even for the IEP or the PAP, you get to put those criteria all together. I remember I used to even tell the teachers, if you need help, I can help you do an assessment sheet or the exam that the child has about, I don't know, fractions. And let's say he has dyscalculia. I'm willing to readjust your exam to his skills. Okay, I know not all therapists do that, but you have to start somewhere. You want change to come, you have to start somewhere. It's not ideal. But saying as a therapist, you can't say, I do believe, this is me talking, when I am the therapist of this child, or when I'm the coach of this client, I have responsibilities. Full stop. Okay, it doesn't mean I'm going to become best friend. I'm not going to be talking to them on weekends. But I have responsibilities toward this family and the child or the client.
Yes,
it's the same in coaching, by the way.
But then it's up to now the parents to embrace that.
Exactly.
Which can be sometimes a delayed response to.
But then again, with your experience, you get to take the decision. For instance, if a family tells me, can you not mention dyslexia in your report? Can you just not say the word dyslexia? I tell them, okay, so if I
really feel for them.
I know. But the thing that I want to tell you is that in such cases, you sit and talk to them and listen to them for as long as it might take. The easiest thing to say is, okay, you don't want me to write dyslexia? No, I'm sorry. Then I won't give you the report. No. Try to understand. Why are they afraid of this term? Why is it so dramatic for them? Try to explain to them.
Talking to Yasmine, I realized how much emotional weight parents carry, especially when they're also, like myself, professionals in the field. It's hard to separate your role as a parent from your knowledge as a therapist. You start second-guessing everything, and then there's the pressure from schools. Some schools push parents to go to specific therapists or centers, like there's only one right way. But that pressure can make you ignore your own gut feeling, a dangerous place to be in. Yasmine had families torn between sticking with a therapist because the school insisted and stopping because something didn't feel right. And I get that. I've been there. Small spaces, crowd clinics, so much noise. Sometimes it's not about the therapist being wrong. It's just that the setup or center doesn't work for you or your child. What I love about Yasmine's approach is that she makes space for honesty. She tells parents from the first session.
Whenever you feel you don't agree with what I'm saying, or whenever you feel there's something bothering you, just say it. I mean, transparency should be a word that should be written in any first session, first interview you do with parents. You just make them at ease. I mean, this is even a marketing process. Act smart. Get the family in front of you to trust you. You just tell them, no, okay, you're not at ease. You just tell me.
Yeah, if only we all knew how to trust our guts more.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lulua,
for being with us.
It was a pleasure.
This was All Brains Grow. Thanks for joining us. You can head to allbrainsgrow.com/podcast for more resources and support. This show was produced and edited by Lina Fansa and myself, Lulua. Music by Blue Dot Sessions.